Howdy, guys. Attorney Walter Hnot. What we're going to be going into is basically what's happening with people reaching out to me about firearms, what the SSA is doing with firearms. And as you know, there's been an uptick, a very large one, in the amount of people who essentially are reading into, the whole IRS situation with firearms, ammunition, etc. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about related to this problem is that there's a misunderstanding when it comes to the Social Security Administration purchasing firearms and purchasing bullets. At the end of the day, the SSA does buy and does request a significant amount of bullets. I want to go back to 2013. In 2012, there was a dust up. 2013, they responded. April 25th, 2013, from the Office of Inspector General. And I want to read a portion of it so that you understand specifically what is going on with ammunition and firearms related to the Social Security Administration. Again, Attorney Walter Hnot. Most of you didn't subscribe to Disability Attorney in America. Please remember to like. Please remember to subscribe. Click the little bell. And if you like to leave a review, totally cool. That would be awesome. Just go to Google and type in Disability Resolution Florida or Disability Resolution Law Firm. Now, this particular write-up was from the government's perspective. So remember, there's many perspectives. There's this perspective, that perspective, and the government's perspective, depending on what year and who's in charge of it. Let's read it real quick. All right, so they go through their introductions. Good morning, Chairman Chaffetz, Chairman Jordan, Congressman Tierney, Congressman Cartwright, and members of both subcommittees, yada, yada, yada. All right, last August, an online commentator took note of a routine solicitation for .357 caliber duty carry hollow point ammunition that the SSA's Office of Acquisitions and Grants, OAG, had put forth on the OIG's behalf. Okay, so basically .357 Magnum, hollow point ammunition. You guys know what hollow point is. It enters a target and then it spreads out and causes more tissue damage. Okay, so they were getting basically .357 Magnum hollow point based ammunition for the SSA. Okay, let's keep reading. It was an unremarkable solicitation. So the SSA is saying, no biggie, we do this all the time. No different from many others we have made in our 18 years as an OIG. Okay, because remember, the Office of Inspector General on behalf of the SSA hasn't always existed. It does now. The agents, right, that follow you around with these CDI units, the agents that are there on behalf of the Social Security Administration to protect it from potential, uproar, unrest, whatever, any of that stuff, those exist through OIG, okay? And it is no different from those made by other OIGs across the federal government. And that's true. That's true. When the IRS asks for bullets, when the IRS asks for firearms, same kind of situation, same kind of gig. Yet, the website suggested that the SSA was preparing for civil unrest, resulting from rumored changes to SSA benefits and programs. Public and media interest was widespread to the point where even Jay Leno included in his Tonight Show monologue. I'll get right to the quote. Basically, I guess they don't include it. I was just in his monologue. We were able to put a stop to the civil unrest, rumor, and other misinformation through complete disclosure and transparency delivered through conversations with the media and Congress and via 2 blog posts of our own. Okay. Still, we continue to get questions from time to time. So again, I'm pleased to be here today to set the record straight on why the SSA OIG needs bullets, how we procure them, and what we do with them. So it is business as usual for the Social Security Administration. Howdy, guys. Howdy, shalom. Howdy. To go ahead and purchase bullets, purchase firearms. And it's not really even purchasing. It's just acquiring them. It's a procurement. It's a request, if you will, for those particular things. Because remember, they train quite a few agents that are part of the SSA. Now, a lot of people are surprised to hear this because to their understanding, like they go to the local field office, they might see the guards there. They might see a guard, or if it's a big field office, they might see 2 guards. But, the bottom line is and those guards, by the way, just whether it's at the hearing office or the field office, they don't always they're not always intertwined specifically with the SSA in the sense of that they work, under the SSA's umbrella. A lot of them are just separate companies that submitted their bid to go ahead and do that security-based job. Now, what you need to keep in mind is this. These individuals that they do hire and retain who have firearm training, they have to go through training. They have to go through tests. They have to pass those tests. And part of that whole situation is that, they have to shoot a lot of bullets to go ahead and make sure that they know how to shoot something, you know, accurately. Oh, by the way, guys, it's so hot outside. I had to leave the dehumidifier on. So if things are a little bit more fuzzy in the background, that is literally because it's so hot outside. Okay, now let's get to this real quick. This is why they need to procure bullets as a Social Security Administration. And just to answer things and make it quick and just get it out of the way, yes, absolutely, they could use a firearm on a disabled or retired person, a beneficiary. Yes, absolutely, that is within the purview. Are they likely to? No. Is the IRS likely to? No. Well, you have to look at the situation. It's never that clear cut. Okay. This year marks the 35th anniversary of the Inspector General Act of 1978, passed in the wake of Watergate to ensure integrity in federal government operations. It created 12 Inspector General charged with conducting independent audits and investigations into fraud, waste, and abuse in their respective department programs and operations. Okay. In the years since, Congress has expanded the community of Inspector Generals to include virtually every federal entity. Some 73 Inspector Generals, remember this was written in 2013, some 73 Inspector Generals conducting audits and investigations across the government. In 2008, Congress even created the Council of the Inspector General on Integrity and Efficiency, an informal governing body of IGs to coordinate and facilitate the audit investigative activities of its 73 members. Now, while the SSA OIG, right? So the OIG are like the attorneys on behalf of the commissioner, agents on behalf of, the commissioner, people that head up the CDI units that investigate people and follow them around. While the OIG is by no means unique, our counterparts in almost every other OIG have sworn federal law enforcement agents conducting criminal investigations, making arrests, and carrying weapons. Here's where we get into the whole agent thing, Okay. In fact, we obtained over 1,400 criminal convictions last year, physically making 552 arrests while completing 7,833 criminal investigations. Now, remember, the way the SSA looks at this stuff is they gauge how they're going to interact with something. Is it an administrative violation? Is it a civil violation? Is it a criminal level violation? These are the highest level of whoops, which are the criminal violations, okay? So yes, they have agents. Yes, they have people that arrest people. Yes, they use firearms, okay? To ask our agents to do so unarmed would be irresponsible, unfair to them and their families, and dangerous to the public, okay? For many years, our authorities to carry weapons came not through statutory authority, which the IG Act did not originally provide, but through memoranda of understanding, an MOU, with the U.S. Marshals Service, okay? In fact, from the creation of the SSA OIG in 1995, when the SSA became independent from the Department of Health and Human Services, which is actually a really cool video that I'm going to do one of these times. It's a study of when the SSA actually became the SSA, because the SSA was not always this giant monster of an agency, okay? Bottom line is they passed the Homeland Security Act of 2002. They operated under such an MOU, and our agents were designated Special Deputy U.S. Marshals. So they were like these quasi-U.S. Marshals. They worked with the SSA. They were deputized and kept through the Marshals, but they were under the authority of the SSA to go ahead and handle SSA matters, okay? And I've actually met a couple of them as a result of some of my claimants being my claimants and how they are at the hearing office. The MOU required from day one of our operation that all sworn agents comply with the Attorney General's guidelines for federal law enforcement agents, which included a requirement that all agents undergo quarterly firearm qualifications. Okay, so here's where we get into how the agents that are trained using the Marshal system, which is kind of like the police force of the feds. So think of it as like county sheriffs or state police. But they're agency police. Think of it as that way. Okay. So in 2002, when Homeland Security Act was enacted, our law enforcement authority became statutory. Okay, so they officially got the rule. They don't have to use the MOU anymore. Everything's cool. So with that said, those quarterly qualifications in which our agents use the same hollow point ammunition they carry in the course of their duties require that each agent complete a 60-round course of fire with a minimum score of 70%. Okay, so I don't know how they grade it or how they do that. I've taken a couple firearm, whether it's just concealed carry or general carry courses. And it's not hard. It's not hard to hit 70 percent of whatever bullets in a certain target area. But I don't know how they do it for the marshals. It's probably something harder than what I had to do. But bottom line is, most of you, if you took a training course, you could do that with no problem. Okay. If they do not achieve this score, they may try again twice more. So you get 3 shots to make it happen for a potential total of 180 rounds. Often, even if an agent passes on his or her first attempt, a second round is completed, meaning that many agents use at least 120 bullets and some as many as 180. So what they're saying is, even if you pass it, they'll try it again, just see how they do a second time, which isn't a bad thing. I know it sounds like government waste, but 60 bullets ain't government waste. That's Ukraine is government waste. That's the billions and billions and billions of dollars in bullets. Anyways, using 120 as an average, our 290 sworn agents firing 120 shots 4 times a year would require a total of 139,000 bullets. So what they're saying is just the training aspect alone of an average, a general average of what a Social Security cop would use would be around 139,000 total bullets for the year. And I mean, remember, these are 357 Magnum. They're not 9, they're not 45 millimeter. They're not something smaller and cuter. They're 357 Magnum. So this is a pretty solid, you got to shoot it and then realign kind of gig. There's some kick to this stuff. However, once a year, our agents must also qualify during a 36 round low light exercise, which I have always hated. Low light exercises are just miserable for me. I absolutely detest them. Even if all 290 agents pass this exercise on the first try, that would require another 10,440 bullets, bringing the total conservatively to 149,440 bullets. And of course, some agents require 2 low light courses to qualify. So this could require 20,880 extra rounds, bringing the total to 159,880 total bullets used for that low light shot. Now, let me tell you something about the low light shooting stuff. So I've never actually done a test where it was low light, like with a sheriff or a cop or whatever there, but I've shot specifically like in Maine where I was at, I forget I think it was the Sanford range up in Maine. And when it gets darker out, and you're only supposed to be there like dusk to dawn kind of gig, but when it gets darker out, it is so much hard. It is just ridiculously difficult to see like the fine details. And you'll know this because when you look at the paper and you put some holes in the paper, it's hard to tell exactly which one was which. Because remember, after you put 8 on the paper, you're starting to be like, okay, there's a shape, there's a design here. Where's the new hole in the design? And it's way tougher. It's way tougher. So anyways, the point is now we're talking 160,000 bullets. Okay. 357 Magnum hollow points. And some of you I know are wondering, why do they need 357 Magnum hollow points? That's probably what they shoot with. I don't shoot with that. That to me, it would just make my hands super sad. I'm a 9mm guy. I enjoy shooting that bullet. Some people are 45 millimeters. Some people are 380, 38, whatever. I don't judge. You shoot whatever you like to. Okay. As you can see, our solicitation for 174,000 bullets was offered based on a reasonable estimate of our needs for the fiscal year. However, not every annual purchase total is the same. Because remember, sometimes they have extras left over. Sometimes they need more. Sometimes they need less. We make our purchases based on our estimated need and available resources. In some years, we've made significantly larger purchases. In other years, significantly smaller purchases. Our care in procuring ammunition is apparent when viewed over time, although records retention requirements dictate that we retain. This is straight from the OIG. This is straight from the government. This is SSA.gov website. Retain records for 3 years. We have 8 years worth of records at hand. Pretty much everybody keeps records for 8 years at this point. Then they just digi drop or just store it on a hard drive somewhere. Dating back to our first purchase of 357 caliber ammunition as we transitioned from another duty weapon. These records show that we have purchased a total of one. It is a big number. It is a scary number. It's like, well, how many bullets has the SSA bought to date? 1,217,000 rounds of .357 caliber duty carry hollow point ammunition since fiscal year 2005, or an average of 152,125 rounds per year, a reasonable total given the qualification requirements described above. Now, here's one thing I want to point out, just so you guys understand. If they're saying 160,000 bullets is what they need for their qualification. And then their number as to how much they're requesting of 174,000. A cute little metric is that there's like, 14, whatchamacallit? Yeah. So 14,000, no, so sorry. Well, higher amount. Well, no, it's, my brain is not working. It's, I'm sorry. My brain is not working right now. I was weed whacking earlier this morning and it was hot and my brain is not able to do basic math. So, oh my God. Hold on. Let me get, I could do this normally, but let me get the calculator up. My apologies, everybody. The brain is not working properly like it normally does. I got overheated while cooking outside this morning in the Florida sun. All right. So 174,000 minus 159,880 equals, so 14,120. So bottom, yeah, okay, so yeah, all right, 14,120 bullets total. You could make an argument. Maybe they needed more bullets. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they didn't have enough in reserve. Maybe they used some. I doubt that they used 14,000 bullets on Americans. That just doesn't seem realistic. But that is a metric, a number that you should look at as a comparison, because that, that's the wiggle point right there. All right. Now, with that said, let's go through this real quick. All right. So, and you notice, another thing that they put in this article, which is that, okay, let me read this real quick. They are 357 caliber. So that's the smaller of like the usual, Magnum shots, right? You got 357 and then you got 44 Magnum. 44 Magnum's a big baddie. 357's the smaller baddie, right? Caliber duties. So they're not purchasing the cheapo, right, ammunition. They're purchasing like the good shit. And let me tell you, there's basically two levels of bullets. There's three levels of bullets. You're buying it to just shoot it at paper bullets. You're buying it to basically use it for self-defense, or if you're part of law enforcement action, right? And then there's basically, the reload / the, top pro kind of bullet stuff where they like custom make them and make them perfect so that when they go into a competition, they can compete and hit the most targets right in the little center. So the point is, there's those 311. So they're not buying the cheapo, put holes on paper bullets. They're buying the next step up. So 357 caliber, duty carry, the nice ones, hollow points. They intend to cause damage to human beings. Another 38,000 rounds of lead-free, 357 for use on ranges that require lead-free ammunition. Oh, look at that. That's interesting that they put this in the article. They were trying to be like green. That's interesting. So very few, I don't know if it is now. I haven't been shooting in a while. I have to go check it out. But very few actual ranges require it to be lead-free. Maybe that's a California thing, because that seems to be, they're like always ahead when it comes to green. But point is, basically 38,000 rounds had to be lead-free, which means they probably wear those like aluminum casing, something else going on, maybe a copper. I'm not sure. I'm not even sure what that is, but you guys will probably know more about that type of bullet than I would. Okay, so let's see. 9,000 rounds of 9mm ammunition. 9mm is great. If you guys ever go like shooting, you're like, this would be like the middle ground, the happy ground. That's great. Hi, Shadow. What's wrong? I see you. And then let's see what we got here. I know. I see you there. Okay. And then we got 38,250 rounds of appropriate 12-gauge shotgun ammunition. What are SSA marshals using? You got to beat down the door, I guess, and find that disabled person. I don't... Because the problem with the argument of like these marshals, and I mean, they're going to give them whatever their training goes through. You know what I mean? I get that point, but the problem with this whole identity of a 12-gauge shotgun, man, guys, you shoot a 12-gauge shotgun into a door and you just blew a hole through that door. I mean, it's very easy to open after that, if not already open after that. All right, so let's see. Ammunition is non-lethal ammunition design. Oh no, so okay, so there's this. Oh, sorry. So they were saying, I thought that was a spelling mistake. They have rounds of 9mm. So they have 9,000 rounds of 9mm simunition, which is not real ammunition. Wow, they don't even buy like real 9mm. They're like, we'll just have people train on the simunition. And then 38,250 rounds of appropriate. That seems like a lot, though. 38,250 rounds of 12 gauge shotgun ammunition of the total 174,000. Oh no, it's just no. That's on top of the 174,000 rounds of 357 caliber duty carry hollow points. That's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot of shotgun rounds. I guess they have them doing shotgun training, but I mean, like, that the training for that must be in an abandoned house, because I mean, you do that, whatever you shoot, you just blew it apart. Like, and just so you guys know, when they build those, like, shooting ranges and stuff, they don't like it when you shoot shotguns at them, because what happens is, like, you have basically two posts and you have plywood, and it just blows away the plywood in no time at all. And then people are always like, let me see what I can do to this post, and then they blow away portions of the post, and then Dale, the range officer, gets all cranky about it. But I know, because I've had Dale yell at me, because it's fun. All right, simunition is non-legal ammunition designed for certain training exercises, and agents must undergo biannual familiarization, 10 rounds or qualification, 20 rounds up to 2 tiers, drills on shotguns, requiring between 11,600, 10 rounds per agent per familiarization drill, and 46,400, 40 rounds per agent per qualification, if 2 courses required to pass shotgun rounds. I just don't know how relevant shotguns would be. I mean, I guess I see it, because if you're going up against real hardened criminals, we're talking like, so, and here's the thing, the mistake I'm making is that these aren't just like some old retired guy walking down the street and they roll up with shotguns. That's not it. They're talking about, like, the drug dealer that's in the, C300, that's got 5 people's retirement benefits in his bank account or his back pocket, and he's got them tied up in a garage somewhere, and that's basically, he's just a super criminal like that. Against an enemy like that, yeah, I could see it. And the other thing is, too, when you have real enemies like that, you have to outdo the weaponry that they have. And most of those guys have weaponry. Most of it's, your handgun, 9mm 45, a lot of Glock stuff. They steal a lot of Glocks and stuff like that. But to be clear, and I think it's important, which is maybe why they're choosing the 357 as the matchup, to be clear with this whole situation, some of these criminals, they have automatic weapons. I mean, really incredible automatic weapons that you would not traditionally expect from, a situation like that, which would very quickly outmatch any of these situations. So, all right, now let's see. We procure our ammunition through SSA's OAG, following all relevant statutory and regulatory requirements. Some have questioned why the OIG uses an SSA component to accomplish this task. All right, so here's their reasoning as to why they need shotgun-bearing, troops. As you're well aware, government contracting is a technical and complex bureaucratic operation. Boy, is that some DC two-swing right there. As you are well aware, the government contracting is a technical and complex bureaucratic operation. So in other words, they're not going to answer that super straightforward. This OIG, like most, sees no need to expend taxpayer funds to duplicate efforts on administrative matters that the parent agency already performs, and performs well, when there is no compromise of OIG independence and no conflict of interest. Okay, so what he's saying is they like having their own agents. They like having the authority over gun-toting individuals. And I could, look, agencies want to have their own police force. They have their own police force. Now, we continue. Just as we adhere to all these regulations related to the acquisition and procurement of ammunition, we take great care in storing and protecting it, and in ensuring against waste and loss. Now they're trying to sell you that they're not spending too much on guns and shotguns and ammunition. Firearms instructors in each field division are responsible for securing ammunition, tracking it, distributing it, and accounting for it. Though a system of logs and reports designed to ensure that no ammunition goes unaccounted for. Well, he wouldn't have put that in there unless there was a potential worry about some article coming out about the SSA losing a few bullets. So that was an interesting statement. I mean, maybe he's trying to cut it off and be like, no, we don't lose bullets and guns as the SSA. We don't lose them. So that maybe there was a little of that there. While we have always been confident in our policies, our practices, and our people. We have, since last August, been discussing an even more formalized, more centralized system of controls over ammunition to ensure not only economy and security, but accountability. So what they're saying is here, we've got a great system, of these gentlemen and ladies who basically store the bullets and make sure none of them get stolen, when the SSA is paying for them. But if that system was not perfect and amazing, they're thinking of an even better system. There's something that happened there. They wouldn't be saying this if something didn't happen there. So basically, as a result, we've recently enacted a new ammunition procurement, storage, usage, and tracking policy that gives our headquarters greater control through the Office of Investigations, Policy, and Administrative Division, and provides real-time inventory invitation to guide and inform procurement decisions. I don't know if they're worried that now everybody knows that the SSA has bullets and, maybe criminals want to steal from them. I don't know if that's the worry, or maybe they lost some bullets somewhere along the line. I often remind OIG employees that as an oversight entity, we are held to a higher standard of accountability, both individually and collectively. We are exacting in our audits and investigations, and no less exacting in terms of our administrative operations, particularly concerning the fiscal outlays, procurement regulations, and inventory controls. Yeah, they definitely, it feels like they lost something. They wouldn't be that pumping the gas on those arguments if they didn't lose some along the way. Once again, I appreciate the opportunity to stand before you today and explain our ammunition procurement usage and tracking. I'm happy to answer any additional questions, yada, yada, yada. That was from the Office of Inspector General, April 25th, 2013, OIG, specifically on what they do with bullets. Now, look, here's the deal. There are other articles that have come out that specifically outline essentially what these different groups and what these different agencies are doing. But there does seem to be, and here's an article specifically from Forbes, why are federal bureaucrats buying guns and ammo? $158 million spent by non-military agencies. It does seem like there is a growing interest by non-military agencies to have a stronger and stronger police force. Now, the SSA I can understand, because let's be fair here. There's a lot of criminals out there abusing what is the largest line item on the line items for essentially the government paying out money. Because when you think about it, we spend an absolutely incredibly large amount on Social Security benefits, retirement benefits, disability benefits, etc. The problem, and I mean, here are some of the statistics over here. Let's see, Department of Education, the DOE is armed and ready with 88 law enforcement officers possessing arrest and firearm authority. Department of Interior, agency spent $4.4 million on guns and ammunition. Although the National Park Service is responsible for nearly half of this spending. Let's see, we got another one over here. Department of the Treasury, they spent $2.6 million to maintain a strong arsenal. Let's see what they got here. Finance has spent $672,424 on ammunition, including hundreds of cases of .223 Remington 62 grain service ammo and 40 caliber ammo and buckshot. Let's see what else we got. Department of Agriculture spent $1.1 million on guns and ammunition. The Forest Service stocked up on 22 rifles. National Resources Conservation Service signed a $10,347 contract with Wild West Guns LLC for guns through 30 millimeter. Guns through 30 millimeter. 30 millimeter is huge. The Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service tallied the biggest tab at the Department of Agriculture, spending $22,336 on rifles and pistols, plus nearly $500,000 on ammunition, including buckshot, shotgun shells, and rifle ammunition. So anyway, if you think that the U.S. military is the only group with guns, obviously that's not true. If you think about it, when it comes down to it, the SSA should have agents to go ahead and track down these individuals who are causing these horrible situations where they're finding disabled people, they're basically locking them in closets, locking them in garages, and then taking their benefits every single month. If you don't believe that those terrible things are happening, please turn on the news. You will see it once in a while pop up. And I just want to point out one more fact before we go to the next video, which is where I answer questions. One important thing to keep in mind is that a lot of people are often surprised by the types of crimes that are committed against the retired and the disabled. That, to me, is the underlying precursor to the general problem. Many of the disabled and retired essentially are not armed. Now, with the disabled, Obama tried to put through a rule, which was then gotten rid of by Trump, that would restrict certain individuals who needed like a payee and had mental impairments, to essentially go ahead and not be able to have a firearm. And so, and it wasn't as simple as that. It was a reporting requirement where they'd have to report if essentially you had, you know, if you had basically the inability to handle your own finances, and if this was a mental situation where you were mentally unsound to go ahead and carry a firearm. So that rule never passed. It was presented, but it never got put into law. Here's the thing. The oddity of this situation is that many retired and disabled who should, people who have a great fear of being attacked, a great fear of being abused, they should carry firearms. I'm not trying to point out that there are particular cities where there's a lot of crime. You already know what they are. It's all over the news. But the point is this: if you were ever like, hey, maybe I should go get a safety course just to try it out, they're not that expensive compared to the great burden and also safety that they present to you. I've always thought it was weird that we don't teach basically firearm safety in school anymore. I always thought that was weird. And I grew up in farm country, and even my school didn't offer that. I had to literally go take a course, and my parents set me up to take the course to make sure I was educated on how the stuff worked. With that said, it's at the end of the day, something that I highly suggest you go ahead and check out. If you're afraid of it, that's great, because then you can have somebody show you how it works and explain it to you. If, however, you're one of those individuals who feels that, guns are part of this extreme right agenda and, blah, blah, blah. Look, you guys have to understand something. I had a Republican call me today and scream at me on the phone. It was a bad day. I mean, the phone calls from clients were great, but so I had two calls. I had one from a Republican, bawled me out, just attacked me on a bunch of stuff. And how could you say that? How could you blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. So at some point, I must have made fun of Trump on the channel with something I said, or said that he didn't do something adequately, and it was beyond my usual look. Let's just call it like it is. Trump didn't do a good job with protecting not only the weight of the evidence standards, but the rights of the disabled and the retired, even though he claims very strongly he doesn't want to touch them. He puts in a commissioner that touches them a lot. Okay, cool. So we got that out there. Then I get a call later in the day from a Democrat. Same angry tone, but this was more of like instead of starting with a punch to my face, it was more of like I'm going to bite your finger off and then slowly move to the other fingers. And his whole thing was that, and it's too far. It's like, it's hard to, apparently at some point I had talked about, like a joke about women's rights when it comes to women should essentially have the right to go ahead and compete in their own sports. And apparently that was very offensive to him. So I'm just going to say, bottom line, where I stand on this stuff, and then you can hate me if you want to. That's cool. I think women should have women's rights, and women's rights should be specific to women. And if we have a separate legal doctrinal theory or separate area of law set up for those individuals who are not in the male or female category, that's the best. We want to have sports specifically for them. I think that would be like the best option, because then you can create your own, just like we have for the disabled, special grouping of competitions and games and all kinds of stuff that they can participate in as part of the LGBT, specifically the trans community. That's what all I'm saying is give women a shot at competing on a somewhat equivalent level on the field. That's all I'm saying. Do I think it's acceptable for some of the other stuff that's going on? When it comes to bathrooms, no, that stuff horrifies me. If I ever a kid, that's not a good thing. It's a very, very bad thing. Okay. So on that thing, I tend to lean more towards, I guess on your side, towards, I guess that's the right side. On the other side, when we look at Trump, just to be fair, Trump has some real legal issues. Is there a two-tier legal standard? Absolutely. Does it make me very angry? Absolutely. Are all the things coming out about the Supreme Court and the benefits and the things that they got to make them live a better and happier life, and that these were from super mega billionaire donors? Yeah, that upsets me a lot. You know why? They drill it into our head with this, really blunt Milwaukee drill that essentially, everything when you're in law school is supposed to be fair and even and magical, and it's a Disney wonderful movie, right? It's just not. It's not. It's an imperfect system, and it's all over the place. And what upsets me about it is that I expect that kind of stuff to happen at the lower courts. I expect that kind of stuff to happen in the district courts, in the state courts, stuff like that. You don't expect that to happen with the Supreme Court of the United States, which is ironically the only group of judges, in this case, justices, who, putting it very simply, have a get out of free jail card because there's no ethical, legal system that actually oversees them. And they will never allow one to be put in place. Because remember, any law that is created, they can go ahead and say it's unconstitutional, and then the law goes away. And then they have to try and pass something a little bit different. So at the end of the day, Supreme Court justices are protected by a very unique situation. Do I think that, with the whole Trump situation, that he was good for Social Security benefits? No, he was not good for Social Security benefits. Was his, economy policy very good for those who were disabled or retired? Yeah. I mean, let's be honest here. The inflation that we've experienced is so absolutely horrific that it took essentially the standard of living for most people, especially on a fixed income, and slammed it to the ground. And that's a lot of resulting of just, basically our main power source, which are, of course, gasoline and diesel engines. And then, of course, the big ships use heavy fuel engines. So was he terrible and horrible? Well, if you compare Biden to essentially Trump, right? Biden talks a good game, but doesn't really get things through to do things, especially when he's got enough people on both houses. And then at the end of the day, he creates a horrible, horrible situation when it comes to economic, just disaster of making it, keep an inflation that's just not boiling over and ruining everybody's, the food costs, the energy costs, the housing costs, all this stuff, right? So he failed in that regard. President Biden, no matter what he does at this point, he failed. He had a horrible economy. Now you have to balance it against the whole idea of the COVID situation. And people will always argue that. But if you go back to the first couple of things he did when he got into office, it was an attack on pipelines. It was an attack on all these things. And I do understand the other side. I think Earth is incredible. I really do. And I think the Earth is resulting changes, right? Because we have a lot of toxic fumes that are being put into the air. And the right side will argue essentially that, the Earth goes through cycles. And the left side will argue it's global warming and that, basically it's all the cows and cars and pizza ovens. The reality is this, whether the Earth heats up or cools down, we have to be aware of it because a lot of people don't realize, but yeah, okay, the ice caps melting, that's bad. That's very bad, but not as bad as geostorms. Geostorms are definitely worse than ice caps. Definitely worse. Giant ice cubes melting, that's bad. That's super bad, but geostorms, way worse. Way worse. So in my, Charlton Zimmerman, I always look for his comments because I just enjoy them. Let me see real quick. Question: do felons get to collect Social Security? Yeah, they can, but there's restrictions with SSI stuff and, when you get out and all those things. But you can apply basically 2 to 3. Well, no, do you mean felons in the sense of those who have yet to serve their sentence? Or do you mean like those who have served and then are now felons? I'll do a whole video on that because it's complicated and it's different for SSI than SSDI and some of the changes there. So I'll do a video on that. But anyway, I'm going to read another comment real quick. Let's see. Marsha Jones says, if you threaten an SSA judge, no. So I have actually been present when a claimant threatened to, do a terrible thing to a judge. And the judge, I remember having the hearing without the claimant because obviously they came and collected the claimant. But the bottom line is the judge was like, I don't understand. I've never met the person. And, I think that he would think I'm a nice guy. And the judge kind of made light of it, but it was such a serious situation because there's multiple groups that show up. The sheriff showed up. And then when the sheriff pluses, like the actual marshals showed up, which, by the way, they look similar. They have similar gear, similar vests, similar all that stuff. Although the marshals, I gotta say, definitely had more training. There was definitely more training to these marshals. The way that they held themselves, the way that they were able to communicate, it was definitely at a very, very high level. Anyway, the marshals show up and they interview everybody, right? So, what's going on? How does it, what happened? What did he say? When did he say it? And then this claimant that I had, that particular claimant then got the phone number of the marshal. And then in the middle of the night, I think it was around 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., called up that marshal and threatened to off the marshal, basically. And then he just kept calling him and kept calling him and kept calling him and kept calling him. But I will say this: if you threaten the life of an ALJ, and I've seen this multiple times, you never win at the hearing level. You never win on the appeals or the remit. You never win. You just have to file a new claim. I've never seen one of those win. They always get denied. Doesn't matter how insane the person is. They always get denied. So anyways, but the point is, I pissed off a Republican today, and I pissed off a Democrat today. And people call me, they're so emotional and angry. And if we could just be fair about something, guys, on the Democrat side, none of the headline Democrats are good for America, right? There's lots of little senators and little House reps that are amazing. Like, if you ever get a chance to see what like a real Democrat is supposed to be, go look at some of the offshoot states, like not New York, not California. Go look at the other states. There are some incredible Democrats that you would just fall in love with. The Republican side, same kind of gig, although with kind of the not so big, population, not so big financial growth states, you tend to get some backcountry Republicans that tend to be very, very purist in their ways, which tends to be like a little like, we want them to kind of catch up with the modern times. So, but anyways, I'm looking for any more quotes. Charlton Zimmerman said, "Good Walter, pissed them off." Yeah, I don't know what the thing is, honestly, guys. If you sit down and think about it, we could, in theory, have achieved Medicare for all. But we make more money than any other country on earth. We could, in theory, achieve that. We could, in theory, achieve a small check that people have, other than basically this idea of food stamps, which food stamps are awesome, but they're becoming somewhat irrelevant because of this obnoxious inflation. So from my perspective, we could do that. Do Republicans want to be part of the thing that pays for that? No. Do I understand where they're coming from? Yes. But look, I mean, if the Republicans, here's the thing. I took a Republican one time to the homeless center, which is a mixture. It's a mixture of pretty much mostly Christian ladies. And the Christian ladies basically, it's a mixture. But if you take like a country, a country boy from basically the farm or the ranch, and you take him to the homeless center, the opinions are strong, and the opinions come out, and they do not feel that a lot of the people there. But now remember something too. You have to understand, on a ranch, on a farm, a lot of people have problems. They have anxiety, they have depression, they have panic attacks, they have back issues, they have knee issues, they have problems. And being out in the open, or not having to work around a lot of people, or not having to get on the phone and sell whatever, croutons, widgets, being out on the farm is good for them. But a lot of people don't have that opportunity anymore because a lot of the farms have moved out. There's no little farms all over the place like it used to be. So there are a lot of disabled people that work on farms. But we don't have the farms to support all these potential people who could still do a job that's separate from stuff. If you want my opinion where it's all going, the first step is that most of these farms will be wiped off the map, and you'll just end up with a bunch of service jobs, which is where we're close right now. Then those farms that basically, where we're wiped off the map, where we're outside of essentially, we're just in services and people calling people, and it's lawyers, doctors, and accountants, and we're just doing services, but all the products come from somewhere else. Then we're going to have the introduction of AI. And a lot of basic functions, it's going to be over. All those you call in artificial, receptionists, that's going to be all AI stuff. But, actually do the job it's supposed to do, not the stuff where you you're screaming at the phone like everybody does. I do it, you do it, we all do it. Okay, it just is what it is. Then we get basically to the point where we have robots with AI that are doing at-home functions. Okay. Then we get to the point around there where we have space travel. We're traveling into space. People are open to the option of going out to space for so many years. It's kind of like a military contract. You go so many years, you get a retirement benefit. Here's the check. You get to live it easy. You get to live your life, yada, yada. The future, guys, just to understand it, is we're going to have robots taking care of us that have artificial intelligence, that feed us, create our meals, do all the stuff, etc. And everything becomes more of a society. I mean, think about how weird it would be. Like, imagine if you were part of a society where there were robots that could operate tractors, or the tractors just were the robots, right? And the tractors would go around and they would pick all the fruit and grow all the fruit and do all the stuff. They'd water everything. They'd do everything. Batteries weren't an issue, but they would take care of everything. To a person living in that world, it would be weird to have to go out with a shovel and, fix basically some post that's in the ground that may be just rotted from, wood eating ants. Like, it would be weird to have to do that. So where all this stuff is going is that people are going to rely on robots to do the work functions, and the work functions are going to provide the basic utility functions of electric and water and food and whatever. So we're going to go back to a servant style America, but the servants are going to be robots. And that sounds weird to a lot of people. That's a weird idea. People don't like to hear a servant society, but Marjan USA, very cool. Very cool. Thank you for the #1 fan. That's awesome. So the point is, with that idea, just to make it clear, we're going to go back to a servant society, but the servants now are going to be for everybody, and they're going to be robots. So it's a different world in the future. Now, this is not the work hard, achieve money, we trade work for money kind of society idea. So then what happens to the Republican stuff, right? Because it obviously goes more liberal, it goes more socialist, right? It goes more social, people all pay into like this thing that supports everybody, and the robots do the utility functions that we don't want to do, right? So what happens to the Republican stuff? The work hard, achieve more. I think that's what space will be. Space will be like, the final frontier kind of gig. You'll be able to go to space, make more money, have a bigger plot of land that you go ahead and can stretch out on and do stuff on. I don't even think some people will return to Earth. Some people are so pissed off with the people who raised them or the people that are in their life, they won't even return to Earth. Some of them will live on Mars. And here's the other thing that a lot of people don't like to talk about, but I think is very important to understand up front. And then we're going to go to the next video, but I got to take a 5-minute break because the doggies are running around. What happens when we figure out how to basically change the atmosphere on Mars and create another Earth? And now we have people that are allowed to, that's Shadow. Now we have a lot of people who are allowed to go to Mars to continue building it, right? Create infrastructure, make it better, make it bigger, etc. But a lot of the people on Earth will never have the opportunity to go to this wonderful Mecca because they don't make money, because the robots do the stuff for them. Some of you will be like, well, whatever, they'll just stay on Earth. And you're right. But I think that in the future, our school travels, we're going on a field trip. I think it will include interplanetary travel. I think it will have that. I think that's a really cool thing, because ultimately, once we're able to travel to different planets, see more, see bigger stuff. I mean, final thought. What do people do when they retire from government jobs in Florida? They go on cruise after cruise after cruise after cruise. One of them loves cruises. One of them is neutral and doesn't give a crap, but he just wants to make her happy. I'm not saying it's gender-based, but it is gender-based. He just wants to keep her happy. So they go on cruise after cruise after cruise after cruise. They've gone on every cruise ship. I see it all the time from all the government people I know and interact with on Facebook. So the point is, what are cruises in the future? Well, some of them go to an island on Earth. Some of them will go out to Mars, etc. So they'll be selling retirement with cruises to other planets. I think that's cool. I think it's awesome. But the amount of cruises and the luxuries on that cruise ship, the spaceship, will depend on essentially maybe the work you put in, maybe what you achieved, etc. I mean, but remember, this is all within the perspective, guys, all within the perspective that I've worked more than a 70-year-old has on 9 to 5 hours. I've worked more hours than they have that are able to retire at 70 years old. And my financial landscape is terrible because I'm in a field that doesn't pay much. So it's always one of those things of the marketplace defines how much you're going to be worth, because the marketplace doesn't really respect my work as something that's worth a lot of money. I don't like to think of it that way. I like to think of it as more of there's no money for the poor, and the poor basically are the ones who are trying to get trying to get their disability benefits. So there's not much of a transitional amount that exists there. You look at basically real estate, there's tons of money there. VA benefits, tons of money there. Personal injury, big corporations, even more money. Anyways, I will see you guys in the next video. Final thought. I was trying to get the video done for the kitchen, and it's going to be a 2-part video of the restoration of the kitchen over on the house next door. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to edit in time, but I wanted it to be in time because the lady who designed the kitchen set it up, got the workers there, got them putting it together, doing all that spiel, right? Her husband is now bedbound. Horrible, horrible situation. After this video, I'm going to put at the top of my comment her specific GoFundMe, because unfortunately, he's completely bedbound. He's in the hospital, and it's a terrible, terrible situation. Right as she was getting her business off the ground with rebuilding kitchens, she did an amazing job. You're going to see it in the videos. The bottom line is, it's a horrible situation. I'm going to be making a donation tonight to her. You don't have to. It's totally fine. But, you can see her story. I'll make sure that the link is up at the top once we finish the videos. Let me go take the dogs out real quick. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please remember to like, subscribe, leave a review on Google, Disability Resolution Law Firm, Disability Resolution, Florida. And I will basically catch you guys later. And then we will, when I come back, we'll do the video where I go live and we basically run questions, 5 to 7 minutes apiece, of anybody who wants to call in and ask a question. I'll catch you guys a little bit later. Oh, and the final thought, if you want me to do a $250 hour with you where I can't take the claim, nobody's willing to take the claim, yada, yada, and I'll tell more about that later. The contracts have been sent out. People have already signed up with it. Give me another week before you reach out to me, because we already filled a chunk of those 251 hour slots. And I have to spend my hours with them. So I don't want to overbook. So just wait another week to go ahead and reach out. And that way I feel a little bit less stressed, because I'm already feeling stressed about how many of these darn things have come in. Because it's, when you get 15 hours spent of people buying hours, it's that's 15 hours. It's a lot of time. All right, guys, I will catch you a little bit later. I'll see you in about 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. Then we'll run the questions. I'll catch you soon. All right. Bye-bye, guys. Have fun. Bye-bye.